Hello, folks. You are listening to the Deal by Me podcast. This is where we ask guests to tell us your story. Your story can be encouraging, inspiring, and very transforming. We ask guests to tell us their experiences and events in their lives that can help others and how those same events and experiences in their lives have helped them in their daily challenges. These are the things that we are interested in knowing from our guests. And I'm just thrilled today to have Dominick Domasky, publisher, author, storyteller, founder of the inspiration sharing platform, Motivation Champs. I'm excited, very thrilled that he gave us the time to share this with us today. Dominick, uh, listeners of this podcast will want to know just a little bit about you, your background, and just tell us a little bit about your situation, your story.
Hey, James, I'd be honored to. And first, I want to say for any of the listeners that don't get to see James, he looks great. He's got a bow tie on and he looks fantastic. So, uh,
Thank you, Dominick.
yeah, no, as far as me, I think I'm a guy who um, shoveled dirt and pulled weeds a lot of time, and there's nothing wrong with that. I grew up in the landscape business, the family business with my father, and learned blue collar values of hard work and putting the time in and things like that. And for my own story, I think I saw him as an entrepreneur and wanted to open a business on my own. And when I was in my early 20s, I decided I'm going to start my own restaurant. And I had thought about that for a while, dreamed about it. And for the listener, after about 2 years, everything went wrong. I ended up losing $500,000. I was on government repayment plans. I had cars repossessed, houses repossessed. I paid the government for about 7 years later. That was one of my journeys. So I'm a guy that has fallen a few times and picked himself back up. And whether it's my little son having um, type 1 diabetes when he was 3 years old, or my mom recently, her Alzheimer's colliding with the pandemic. I've seen some tough times, but I try to put a positive spin on it and just look and hold on to that fact that there's always hope out there, and that's the world I live in, James.
So you were one of those uh, guys who were living the fast life, and it all came crumbling down.
I don't know that I was living a fast life. I think this was before the mortgage bubble burst the first time, when if you had good credit and you had a decent idea, people would give you loans and offer you more money. So I was in this world where I saw, like, if I go back to my dad, I saw a guy work hard. He's still in business. He's 80 years old and still in business. So I saw a guy go to work hard, just work harder, just work harder, just work harder, and things will work out. But when I was in the restaurant business, even when I went and got a paper route, even when I refereed basketball games, even when I stayed open later on Fridays or Saturday or started catering, I was still losing 10, 20, $30,000 a month. It didn't all work out. And so that was probably uh, an epiphany where maybe there's different routes for everybody.
I do understand. It's interesting. You said restaurant business. When I was practicing law, I had a restaurant business, and I tell my wife now all the time, I never go into another one. I say if you want, I said when I see people doing well in it, I'm happy for them. But too much of mine went out the back door, so I said I can't deal with restaurant business anymore. But I do understand exactly where you're coming from. Uh, I'm very interested in your story because you've shared quite a bit as a publisher, as an author, storyteller, and founder of inspiration sharing platform Motivation Champs. First of all, talk a little bit about your publishing business and the author, what you do in terms of your storytelling, and also a little bit about the you being the founder of the inspiration sharing platform known as the Motivation Champs. Uh, but before you do anything, tell me a little bit about Motivation Champs. What is that?
Okay, interesting. What we do at Motivation Champs is share inspiration, positivity, smiles 24/7 and help other people do the same. So when you say, what is it? It is any platform that we find that we can share those types of things, inspiration, smiles, share that uh, somebody got an A, share that they ran a 5K, share that they're out doing nonprofit work, share that a funny video of a dog that makes somebody smile. So I'm a believer that people consume content thousands of various ways, like me being on this beautiful podcast today. Podcast is a great way to consume content. It's a great way for listeners to engage when they're driving in their car, to be inspired. So, what we do at Motivation Champs is try to find all these different ways that people could share this type of content
Mhm.
and be in all those places. So, whether that means social media, clubhouse, podcast, publishing of books, writing of screenplays, and we just keep trying to find new ways and engross ourselves so that it's not about me, like it's about this person has a story, that person has a story. How does What is the story they're looking for today when you're in need? Not everybody's story resonates with you, so I could stand up here and tell you stories about me pulling weeds or whatever, and somebody might say, yeah, but that's not what I'm looking for. But if on the platform we shared another story of a mother who overcame breast cancer, a mother who overcame divorce, or a man that lost 100 pounds. If we could share those stories also, maybe there's a story that connects with somebody in need,
Mhm.
and that's the one they find on that day. So the mission really is to be in everywhere we can sharing that kind of content.
Oh wow, wow, that is very, very interesting. Um, Let me ask you about your the publishing company. Is that in line with the Motivation Champs, or you do something different with that?
No, well, number one, I hope to be on mission with everything I do in my life,
Okay.
whether that's spending time in the community, helping somebody out, or helping somebody share their story. So at Motivation Champs, the publishing arm of it, wing, silo, whatever you want to call it, we deal in books that are inspirational, coaching, self help, motivation, people overcoming illness, fitness, all anything in the children's books, anything in those business tips, anything in those related genres that could empower somebody to their best life.
Okay, okay, I understand where you're coming from. Now, you also in writing your books. I note that you've written over 6 books, ranging from fatherhood to how to write a book. So you're very interesting. Uh, and you've done something which is, I think, very interesting. You've written something about your mother's Alzheimer, uh, how she's, I guess, colliding with that in 2020. How she's dealing with it is what you have reference to. Uh,
Yeah, what I think is, so you'll notice that I don't I spend my time promoting everybody else, believing
o-
in sharing their story.
okay,
But in the but I kind of felt almost cathartically I had a story to share about my mom's journey with Alzheimer's. And I I started writing it probably for nobody ever to see, almost documenting the things that
Mhm.
were going on. Here's her struggling with Alzheimer's, here's her condition getting worse. And then it really did collide with 2020 and the pandemic and being locked out of nursing homes, not being able to see the ones
Mm.
that you love. So I wanted to write when I may not be qualified to do it. I wanted to write a love story and not a strange love story. I'm a story of unconditional love between a mother and her son, and that was the mission of My Name Is Sharon.
Oh, wow, that's exciting. Um, you know, when I wrote my book, uh, people would say to me all the time, uh, "Why would you share all those details? Why would you tell about everything?" And I tell them my life is an open book, so I don't mind sharing. So the question that I ask you is, why put yourself out there and write a book about your family's experience with Alzheimer's disease? Because folks are going to say, you know, I don't believe he would do this. But you're saying that it's not about talking about or trying to diagnose the disease itself. It's about showing how your love for your mom who is suffering with that, and especially how it came to head in 2020 as a result of COVID, being locked out, can't get into the nursing homes or hospitals or wherever she may have been, and so you wanted to express this. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, I believe there's a lot of people dealing with these types of Alzheimer's and dementia. I consider them dealing with it in the shadows. It's almost like a disease that, well, even me, there's a guilt of letting people know when your loved one is first going through that. Oh yeah, my mom has this. My mom isn't the same woman she once was. My mom doesn't remember me. My mom is struggling in other facets of her life. That's a subject that we don't always want to broadcast to the world and let people know that our families aren't perfect and things aren't rosy. And so I just thought it was important to let other people know that if they're going through something like this, here's somebody else going through the exact same things, and you're not alone.
That is very admirable. I tell you, it's good that somebody would do that because people are hurting behind the scenes and they don't come out and want to talk about it. And that's not only with that disease, but with a lot of disease. We suffer with it. I've had prostate cancer surgery. But I've had friends, male friends of mine who don't even, they'll share with me. They say, I don't want everybody to know all of this. And I say, well, look, it's okay because your sharing will help somebody else. And
Yeah.
so I really appreciate what you're doing there. So, what advice would you give other families that's dealing with uh, this particular disease, or who may be dealing with any kind of disease, whether it's cancer, heart problems, or what have you? Is there any particular advice that you would give to families who are going through something?
Sure. I want people to know that that person on the other side of the disease is still your loved one,
Mm,
and they deserve dignity. So in my mom's case, or dementia, Alzheimer's, sometimes they don't know what they're saying, they don't remember what they're saying, they don't understand, but in their mind it's truth, whether they think they lost their keys or they're living in 1950 right now. uh, that is the truth to them. I think it's Sigmund Freud that says no memory is ever lost. They're just compartmentalized differently. And so I think about that and I see people that are angry at the person who's fighting the disease, or short tempered with them
mm,
when they're fighting the disease. And I think, well, when we were a little baby, our parents didn't yell at us when we didn't know something. And so now in this case, how is it right to
mm.
treat them with anything less than love. So I just say a couple deep breaths and have a little more patience and a little more empathy, maybe.
Well said. Well said. I had a conversation with my classmate just yesterday from college, and we kind of stayed in touch with each other. He lives out in Henderson, Nevada, which is right outside of Las Vegas. And I go out there every once in a while and visit him. And he was telling me last night that his wife has him in a memory class, and he's upset about it. And I say, don't be upset about it. I say it's okay. I mean, we all begin to lose a little bit of our memories. And then he started laughing, telling me about how he he can remember everything almost way back there,
Yeah.
20, 30, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. He says, I remembered it. He said, my problem is I just can't remember what happened yesterday. So
Yeah.
I said, you're in the same boat with a whole lot of folk, so talk about it. It's really great, and it's helpful, not only to yourself, but to others too. So I admire that with what you're doing. Getting back to you being an author, uh, what can you share with other authors, who are aspiring to write? Is there any tidbits that you have that you think will help them as they're trying to write? I've written 3 books myself, so I know how difficult that can be. But as one who is a publisher, what would you tell
Well, do you have about 3 years and we can go through this?
them?
No, the first thing I really think for people is to get those drafts down. Start sharing this. Start putting pencil to paper, hands on the keyboard, getting things down. A book is beautiful in your head. The concept is beautiful in your head. Start getting that down, whether you need to dictate into your phone and save it in your notes or email it to yourself. It doesn't matter how you get it to paper, but you need to get, and then as soon as you get it on paper, then you need to get it to a computer and into files and save as many ways as you can. But I really think it is about building a document, building a book. And all of a sudden, somebody might say, well, I don't know what I want to write about. Well, once you start building that document, you will see where your passion goes. Am I talking about fatherhood? Am I talking about fishing? Am I talking about my mother? Am I talking about disease? Am I talking about my career? Am I talking about how some steps of how to? And I think once you start to build that document, you'll start to see, okay, I'm really focused on this
Mhm.
or this. I thought I wanted to write a book about fatherhood, but I can see all I share here is business tips. Well, maybe that's because that's where your passion is leaning. So
Mm.
I really think the first thing is start to put that pen to pad. How's that?
Sounds great to me. That's what I had to do. So I know that's one of the things you need to do, but it's always good for listening, because people who listen to podcasts, you never know where their thoughts are, where their minds are, what they're interested in. And the fact that some of them may be interested in, oh, I'd like to write a book, but they don't even know where to start. So
Hmm.
to share some of this with them can be very, 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 very helpful. And so thank you for doing that. I get it when we first started talking that you had a couple of failures, and you even admitted that, restaurant, that went down, but a lot of it was because of the market crashing or whatever, things being a little different, easily get money, and then all of a sudden, it goes down. So, do you think you are defined by your failures?
Only if you stop the day you fail. So it really, to me, they're all learning experience. I consider that I have a master's degree in failure and overcoming it as well. And in any of those failures that you mentioned, I'll take 100% responsibility. Like I almost cringe when I hear that it was the market or something like that. No, I could have done better. I could have done better. I could have been better financed. I could have had better food. I could have wrote a better book the first time or whatever it is. You
Hmm.
know, I could have been a better basketball player when I was in college. All anything that
Okay. Okay.
you, yeah. So you're only defined by them if all of a sudden you say, well, that didn't work. I'm done. I got knocked down. I'm done. What is it from the Bible? I think it says fall 7, stand up 8, you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
and to me, that's what it's all about. The things you can learn, one, about wherever you're trying to go and about yourself when you fail, man, it's priceless. And to have a perspective that you have this, and I use the word empathy, but when you can look at things from the other side of the table and realize things don't always go right, things don't always go right for everybody. The path that you're on, James, is how you were able to change things around. Everybody else doesn't have the person who was there and said, hey, we're going to give you a second chance. We're going to give you
Hmm.
this. But all of a sudden, when you're able to look at things from all these points of view, I think you can really grow as a person.
I when I first went through my difficulties, and I kind of call them difficulties. Uh, I thought when I committed this crime that it was because of uh, I had kind of labeled myself as a compulsive gambler. But then when I wrote my second book, which was the second edition of the Deal by Me, uh, uh, I had a subtitle called Self Evaluation. And I wanted, and I was doing a self evaluation of myself because I thought that was important. And one of the things that, one of the chapters that I wrote on was uh, don't be afraid to fail. Now, and I went back in my self evaluation and I thought that was really why I robbed the bank. You follow what I'm saying? It had
Hmm.
nothing to do with me being a compulsive gambler, even though I like to gamble. But I was this lawyer who didn't couldn't see himself going down. And I was losing money in gambling and I just couldn't see myself going down. And when I came to the point where I realized that, it made me a better person. So talking about, you're talking about what happened to you made me think about all of that. And it was really interesting. So sharing this is just uh, phenomenal. I don't know what to say, really. You've done such an excellent job in sharing this today, and I know that listeners will appreciate it. Tell us where we can learn more about you. Is there any platform or books or anything that listeners can go to pull up that will say, I want to know a little bit more about his books, a little bit more about Dominick Domasky. Uh, can can you share anything of that nature with us?
I got you, James. One, I appreciate you and I appreciate this opportunity. But if anybody wants to check out, we're doing our best. If you look up Motivation Champs, whether that be on Instagram or a website or Twitter or Facebook, if you look up the word motivation and the word champs, we will be there trying to share inspiration, positivity, and smiles and motivation and other, not just my story, other people's stories, stories from across the globe, from Dubai to Australia to Texas to Chicago to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I'm from. So our mission really is to share all those people's story and really so motivation champs. And I'm sure if you scroll through you'll find some stuff about me too and some books that I've written as well. But first check it out and see what all these other good people like James are doing.
And there you have it. Dominick Domasky, who says, and very interesting, but he says that his greatest accomplishments are his two children, and he aspires to be the best husband and father he can be. What a great story, Rick. And thank you again for sharing with us today.